Porsche has recently released a new Macan model. Of course, the question is, how would one configure this, and which of the three options, the Macan S, and the Macan GTS, would one ultimately decide on getting? That's what I'm going to look at in this video, and I'm going to look at how one would spec up a Macan, primarily with resale value being the focus. So that's what we're going to do here. Now, if you have any thoughts about how to spec up a Macan, or if you think it's a complete waste of time, or if you really like it, do let me know either way in the comments below. And otherwise, of course, it would be great if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's go over to Porsche's website and have a look at the Macan. So here we are on Porsche's website, looking at the three Macan options. We have the base Macan, we have the Macan S, and we have the Macan GTS. Obviously, they all cost different things and have different specs to them and different components. So with our base Macan, this is starting at $54,900. Of course, that is before options, which are plentiful. So about $55,000. This is, of course, before taxes and various other things. The exact tax that would apply will depend on the state you're living in, of course. Now, these are US prices. The same basic logic applies outside of the US, so what I'm going to say will apply mutatis mutandis whether you're in Australia, the UK, or wherever. Now, in terms of the baseline specs for this, 261 horsepower, 0 to 60 miles per hour, time of 6.0 seconds, and 144 miles per hour top speed. So that's what we're seeing for the base Macan. It probably would not be the one that I would go for. Now, in terms of the Macan S is more expensive. It is here starting from $65,000. So we're seeing quite a shift up in price, but I mean, it's not egregious. We're going here at $65,000, and for the base Macan, it is at $55,000. I would regard the $10,000 as being worthwhile. The reason it's worthwhile is simply the significant change in performance. 375 horsepower, 4.6 seconds 0 to 60 miles per hour time, 160 miles per hour top speed. Now, the thing that I want to emphasize here is really the acceleration time, significantly different, like 1.4 seconds different. That's huge. The horsepower, of course, is significantly nicer as well. Furthermore, the Macan S has a V6, whereas the base Macan has a V4, a four-cylinder. So as a result, I'd be more inclined to go to the Macan S, because that $10,000 difference is really buying you quite a bit in terms of additional performance. And 10K for shaving 1.4 seconds off the 0 to 60 time is actually not bad. I mean, that's really quite reasonable in my opinion in terms of the prices. Now, the main challenge is the GTS. The GTS is more expensive still. It is at $80,000, whereas the S is at $65,000. So we're seeing it cost about $15,000 more. Now, you get some additional performance here. The additional performance is, of course, nice to have, of course. 434 horsepower, 4.3 seconds 0 to 60 time, 169 miles top speed. Now, the main thing, of course, that we'd be emphasizing here is the 0 to 60 time. It goes from 4.6 seconds to 4.3 seconds. Now, here we're seeing a 0.3 second improvement, but it's costing you another 15K. This one becomes less of an enticing proposition. To my mind, the GTS is maybe a little bit priced out. You're getting benefits, and there are some nice things you're getting with it. So some additional sport-related features like sports exhaust and the like, and PASM and the like. That is Porsche Active Suspension Management. But it's costing you a lot more. The thing I want to emphasize here as well is the Macan GTS from this generation. While it will always maintain a premium over the S and the base Macan, as soon as the next generation comes up, this Macan GTS is going to become relatively unloved, because let's face it, you'd probably rather have the newer generation of the Macan than the older generation GTS. So that is implicitly going to put a little bit of a cap on the GTS pricing. Now, I do know that GTS prices oft-times are above the price of the base for the next generation. However, it becomes increasingly difficult to justify that. It becomes a more difficult sell when the next generation comes along. So for that reason, I'd shy away from the GTS. The Macan S, however, is going to have less of that issue because it's less of a price premium. And also it has most of the performance benefits. Not all of them, not everything, but most of them. And is going to give us a better way to spec it with resale in mind, to my opinion. Now, the GTS is a really nice car. However, I'm not sure that I'd really want to spend the additional 15K, as nice as it is. Now, there are some strategies where this might be more worthwhile. So, for example, if you are doing it through a company lease, so if you're in Australia and you're offered a novated lease scheme whereby you're paying for a good portion of it from pre-tax income, then the Macan GTS becomes much more attractive. But for ordinary circumstances where you're not having those types of financial engineering situations, becomes less interesting than the S at that price point. So I'm going to focus on speccing up the S. However, I will circle back around to how I would spec a GTS later on. Alrighty, so with that extended preamble out of the way, let's start speccing up this Macan. And I'm going to keep it reasonably lean, and I'm going to be speccing it up primarily with resale-related things in mind. Now, obviously, reasonable minds can differ on how to spec these things up, so if you have any different thoughts from me, I'd be interested to hear what you would do with this car. Of course, we can all have different opinions about what would be a good car, but I'm going to be primarily focusing on resale. Again, all of this is in US dollars. The same basic logic applies to other markets, but some other markets have different things standard, and the differences in option prices will vary. So do bear that in mind. There can be some subtle differences across markets. Now, before we actually get into this, there's one other thing I want to point out. The other thing here is that the total price that Porsche is giving us has actually increased a little bit over the baseline price that they quote. It appears that this quadrates with shipping related charges and the like. So just bear that one in mind. So let's start with speccing it up. So the first thing we'll look at is colors. Now with the colors, we have two standard, white and black. I regard those both as boring and potentially not really going to differentiate your car from the pack. I would regard it as being a better option to go with a color that is going to be more likely to differentiate your car from everyone else's car. That might make it a little bit easier to sell, because we'll make it a little bit more interesting and make it a little bit more rare. Now, rarity for rarity's sake is not necessarily good. Something can be rare because it's rubbish. But generally, if there are fewer on the market with a particular spec, that's going to help you a little bit. So that brings us to the metallic colors. All of these are the same price. Some of these I would absolutely avoid. White and black in metallic seem to not gain you very much. Volcano Grey metallic is nice, but again, I don't regard it as particularly interesting. But of all of the greys, it is by far the nicest. I don't mind gentian blue metallic. However, I do know that blue oft-times doesn't do spectacularly well in resale. So I'm not totally fond of it, but I can definitely see there being a reason for it. We've also got night blue metallic. Night blue metallic is not a bad option because it is kind of conservative-ish, but more interesting than black. So it's not a bad option. I personally prefer papaya. Papaya is interesting because it's orange, and I would regard this as being more eye-catching. It's also a nice color, so I'd be inclined to go with papaya, to be totally honest. You also have mahogany. I would avoid mahogany because then when you're clicking what color is your car in the used car market, you click brown. Brown is not going to be the most enticing color in the world. We also have some special colors down here. The special colors are more expensive and, in my opinion, not any better. So, for example, crayon or chalk, I regard as kind of ugly. I would avoid it. I kind of like carmine red, but it's expensive, so I wouldn't go with it. Papaya is much cheaper and gets you basically the same thing. Miami blue is very polarizing, and a lot of people don't like it. So for that reason, I would go with papaya metallic. I will, in a second, give you one caveat to this and explain one caveat that could lead one to go to night blue metallic instead. So we can continue down. Next thing is wheels. It comes standard with 20-inch. I would not change these at all. I would not change to a different 20-inch wheel, nor would I change to a 21-inch wheel. One can argue about whether you'd make it darker. So, for example, go with satin black or black. Now, to some extent, the trend of having black wheels has kind of come and gone, but also they are $2,700. That is not a good use of money. You could get these painted up in an aftermarket shop for a fraction of that cost. So I would just go with the bog standard wheels. In reality, people aren't going to be paying you more for a slightly different color of wheels. So I'd leave them as standard. You could go with 21-inch, but it's expensive. I don't regard that as being a good use of money at like $3,000 to $4,000. Continue down to wheel accessories. I would again ignore these generally. The tire options are an option in the US. They're $0. I don't know that I do very much in relation to those. So, I mean, depends on what you need. The next one is wheel centers in colored Porsche with the colored Porsche crest. Now, this is not a terrible option. The thing is, with this, it creates this colored center of the wheel. People are very unlikely to notice nor care about it. That means that if we're trying to cost save on everything, I'd cut that out because every single $200, it adds up. And before long, you can go, oh, it's only 200 here, 300 here, 150 here. Everything adds up. And all of a sudden, you've spent thousands of dollars on options that don't really add very much. So I would cut this one because people won't really notice or really care. Now, the next thing is the interior. Now, the interior is one where there are some options. Now, we've got the base configurations, black and gray. If I were to go between the black and the gray, I just keep it in black because black is a little bit harder wearing. I think it's a better color, but again, personal preference, but I lean toward the black. They both cost the same though. We have another option here, which is effectively a two-tone type option. We have got beige with some black highlights. It is not a bad option. It obviously does not go with orange and would look stupid with the orange car. This, however, could go with the night blue metallic. So the darker blue could fit with beige. That would potentially work. So we can go back up here and just change the color, and we can kind of get a bit of an idea for what this would look like. Overall, dark blue with a beige interior could be perfectly nice. I think beige makes it look a little bit old. I'm not a massive fan, but if I were to go with the night blue, I'd probably lean toward the beige interior. Just bear in mind that if you have dirty things, like kids who are going to spill chocolate on it, maybe just go with the black interior. But in any case, I'm going to save the money and go with orange with black. And I would regard that as being similar in nature, really. And this costs a little bit less. You now have another couple of options. In terms of the other options, you've got effectively deviated stitching packages. You could go plain. This leather package gives you more leather in places. In reality, because there are leather seats and there's enough leather, the leather package won't gain you that much on resale because there's already leather in the car. So communicating what the leather package gets you, that the leather already didn't, it's a bit of a tough sell. So if I were to go with the leather package, it would need to be a deviated stitching one, which are all of these ones down here. So I've got it in chalk, blue, or orange. Obviously, if you have the papaya colored car, you do it in orange. The problem is, it costs $3,600. Are you really going to get $3,600 in resale from this? Does the marginal buyer care that much about deviated stitching? For some particular types of 911, this is important. For example, if you're speccing a Turbo S, this could make a difference. It could help get your sale across the line. This, however, is not a Turbo S, a 911 Turbo S. This is a Macan, and not even the top-level Macan. So while deviated stitching might help your deal get done, I very much doubt it is going to make much difference for the overwhelming majority of cars. So I would just keep it with the standard black, rather than spending the $3,600 on this. Another option is the Bordeaux red interior. Obviously, you would not do this with orange, but you could theoretically do it with blue. Now, the thing is, with this Bordeaux interior, you see different pictures depending on exactly how you click the button. So it is a little bit opaque as to exactly how Bordeaux it is. And I'm also aware that in different markets. So for example, in the Australian market, this actually looks a little bit different when you spec it up as compared to in the US configurator. It's very, very weird. What I would say with the Bordeaux interior is I would go with it if and only if your market has just tiny red highlights. If it's tiny red highlights, like what we've got here, Bordeaux is nice enough because it's not overwhelming. It's just in little sections, like the center of the seats, armrest, that type of thing. That looks fine because you sort of look around here and it's like, okay, we've got the red interior for the seats, some little red highlights here and there, some red stitching here and there. It looks nice enough. However, I actually think the configurator is not giving this the proper representation. I think what in reality this is red everywhere. And red everywhere looks very overwhelming. And I think is incredibly polarizing, and so polarizing, it might turn off some buyers. So you look at the red interiors in photos, not just in the configurator, but in photos, and they look very overwhelming. Now, Porsche has reined that back by going for this more crimson-y type red as compared to the really bright red. But I still think if you were to do red on everything, it would look very overwhelming. Like I said, it's very weird how the Porsche configurator works across different markets and things as to why the red appears different. But in any case, I would check this with your dealer. If the red ultimately in your market looks like this, it can be an okay option if you're going with like a blue car or something. But I think it's going to be much more ugly than the configurator makes it out to be. So hence why I'd go with plain black here. You have extended leather, which doesn't seem to gain you very much, to be honest. It's much more leather, but it's going to cost you a lot more money. So we're talking about $6,000, maybe a little bit less, depending on exactly what you're going with. So I wouldn't really go with that. I mean, you have this extended leather with pebble gray related things, but as soon as you add it, you start adding on more and more options. It goes ding, 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 ding. You have to add on like more seats and it becomes expensive. So I'd completely ignore this. If I click accept changes, you can see what it looks like. But really, I don't think it just doesn't look that good. Same with the red. Like this is the red that I was thinking of before. And I think that this normal leather looks exactly like this when you spec it up in reality. And this is just overwhelming. The red everywhere just looks weird. It just looks kind of a little bit ridiculous, to be honest. And I don't like it. You've got the beige again, same thing. So I'd go back with the standard leather. Now, it has defaulted to selecting some seats for me. I'll go and amend that. I would not select the power seats or the power option seats. Go with the basic seats. No one's going to notice nor care. Now, in terms of deviated stitching and the like, it appears I must have gotten some additional option here. Oh no, that's the correct number. So if we go with the deviated stitching up here, we have some options, but each of these options are going to have to add on additional seat options. So it automatically becomes expensive. So say I went with deviated seat centers, went in orange. Then I'm going to need to add on another option and becomes $7,000, $6,700. So let's just ignore that because it's expensive and it really is not going to add very much. This then brings us down to other options. Now, in terms of other options, we've got two packages. We've got a premium and a premium plus. The premium package gets you some stuff, only some of which I'd buy. The premium package gets you some things that I would buy, heated seats, some things I would ignore. Lane change assist is annoying, I would ignore that. Bose surround system seems unnecessary, the normal one's fine. And the LED headlights with blah, blah, blah. LED headlights are standard. You don't need the headlight options. No one's going to care. So I'll just ignore that and ignore that premium package. The next one is a premium plus package. The premium plus package gives you some additional things. So the main thing it gives you is the panoramic roof system. It also gives you some additional seat options, some LED headlight things, Bose system, lane change assist, heated seats. I would go with this if I wanted maybe a few of these options. However, of all of these, I would only go with the heated seats. So I think this is expensive for the options I think are necessary. The panoramic roof system, which I guess I'll come back to in a second, I would definitely not get. The reason I would definitely not get the panoramic roof system is because if you're in a hot environment, it gets very annoying. because Porsche with their panoramic roof allows you to cover it up with a mesh, but you can't properly block out the sun, which is incredibly annoying. I had it on my old Cayenne. It was just really irritating. I would absolutely not go with a panoramic roof for that reason. So under exterior, you've got some options here. Roof rails are one that I'd consider getting depending on your market. Some people are going to really want roof rails, and this could be because they're transporting skis or whatever and need those roof rails. It's an option that I would definitely consider depending on the market you are in. For my market, it's not necessary, but for some people it might be. Then you have various other cosmetic options. I'm going to kind of skim through these because none of them are really necessary or useful at all. You've got various options about what the side blades are in, whether it's gloss, whether it's whatever. I would ignore pretty much all of this. If you really want all of your black stuff here, so in the front, on the side blades, etc., you could just go to a shop that will wrap it and get it wrapped in whatever. I would not wrap the whole car, but you could like wrap this and then you'd be able to say to a buyer, well, there's some PPF effectively on this area because it's a wrap if they really ask. And you could wrap it in something that's like carbon fiber looking or just plain black, whatever. I would not bother going with any of these Porsche options. They cost quite a bit to get it all done, and it seems unnecessary. So let's just skim through these, all pretty much the same here. Next thing comes down to performance. Now with performance, there are some things that I would definitely option here. And this is where I'd probably start spending some money. So I probably would go with PASM, although it probably won't get you that much more money in resale. But it will get some sales across the line. Some people will really like it. Basically what it does is allow some adjustable air suspension. So it's going to make the ride a little bit smoother. Some buyers are going to want this. If you're really economizing though, I would cut this in favor of some other options, or in favor of just saving the money. But I think it's a nice one to have. It is going to help incrementally with sales. One of the performance options I would definitely go with is the Sport Chrono package. It I would regard as an incredibly useful option to have. Porsche buyers are going to appreciate the Sport Chrono package. They'll appreciate it more than PASM. The torque vectoring system effectively allows for, I guess, calibration in terms of the power that's being sent to the rear wheels. And effectively allows, what they say here, a variable torque distribution through controlled braking on rear wheels. Electronically controlled, fully variable differential lock for increased agility and steering precision, as well as traction and vehicle stability. Okay, this one, from a resale perspective, I think you could leave it. I don't know that you'd really notice it very much from a driving perspective either. So I would regard this as not being a necessary option for this car. PASM is also not necessary, but it appears to have more name recognition than the torque vectoring. Furthermore, PASM is an easier one to sell because it's going to have like a little button in the center console and air suspension everyone can conceptualize. The torque vectoring is tough to explain. It's like, oh, we have some special braking going on with the rear wheels. It's a tough one to really get across the line. So just from a sales perspective, I wouldn't. But if I were to choose an option, this would be the next big ticket option I'd go for, other than the heated seats. Sports exhaust I'd ignore, primarily because not many people are buying a Macan for loud noises. So I don't think then anyone's going to care. It's not like a 911 or whatever where a sports exhaust can be great. It's just not really going to make much difference. Light and vision, again, we can ignore this. Nothing really there that's useful. Comfort and assistance packages, there are some here that will be helpful. I would seriously consider some of these. Depending on your market, you might want adaptive cruise control. Where I'm based, this would not be necessary because people wouldn't be driving the car long distances, and when they are driving it, it's often in windy back streets. So the adaptive cruise control is not going to do very much to help you. So it's going to be one that won't be that useful. Lane keep and lane change assist I would ignore as well. Self-steering park assist is nice. I'd probably add that because some people are going to like it. More useful than that is surround view. The surround view is going to give you effectively a 360-degree camera view. So surround view features a 360-degree surround view generated from high-resolution cameras, enabling even greater comfort when maneuvering. A junction view from front and rear of the vehicle provides assistance at more complex exits. Images are displayed on the Porsche Communication Management System screen. So I would absolutely go with this. Some people are going to really want it. And I would regard that as probably a better use of option money than the torque vectoring. There are some other interior options here. Of all of these, I would definitely go with heated seats. Of course, some people are really going to want that and will help get it across the line. I would largely ignore ventilated seats because in most markets, this won't really be necessary. It just is it's kind of a surplus thing that isn't really that used. I would ignore most of the heated steering wheel stuff unless you're in a really cold environment, in which case it might actually be okay. And then we can sort of continue down. In terms of the seat belts, we've got some seatbelt options, but I would again ignore those at the moment. And the cargo management system is not really that necessary. Then in terms of the other interior options, I'm going to largely skip over these, but you've got interior in carbon fiber. This is $940. If you have some additional money to spend, this is an okay cosmetic option. I don't regard it as necessary. I don't regard it as really helping out very much at all in terms of resale. And in reality, you could probably just wrap up a lot of these things in carbon and get it done. But I don't think anyone's going to pay you that much more for having a tiny couple of carbon fiber pieces. Now, carbon fiber pieces are effectively occurring like some side skirts areas. So you've got a carbon fiber piece right here where the glove box is and some on the doors. It really isn't that much. It's not like it transforms the interior. Most people are probably going to barely notice. A good number of people are probably just going to assume it's fake carbon. So I'd ignore that, save the money. And then we can go down to audio and communication. Again, I would skip these as well. The ordinary sound system is fine. I would skip the upgrades there. Wireless charging, I would skip that in the market that I am in because wireless charging is not really that necessary. Oft-times, people have charged their phone anyway. I have never personally felt that I needed wireless charging. So overall, the price for equipment that I've gone up to right here is an additional $5,500. So the price all up is $72,000. One can ask the question of, is $72,000? The GTS is around $80,000. Should you just sell out the extra $8K for a GTS? Now the answer to that is you could do so. The GTS has some performance improvements. It has 21-inch wheels. It looks a little bit better. Is it $8,000 better though is another question. Furthermore, the issue with the GTS is that you would need to do a lot of these options anyway. TASM is a free option with the GTS, but a lot of these other things like Sport Chrono, and if you wanted to go with torque vectoring, that would be an option. Both of those are options. Heated seats still remain an option. Basically, everything I've selected here still remains an option. So you'd still need to spend some money to really get it up to the same something. There are options you'd want that you'd still need to spend money on. So you'd probably end up spending a good at least $5,000 or so in options for it anyway. So the price would also shift upwards. But that said, let's have a look at how we'd spec a GTS and we can go from there. Now, I'll try to avoid repeating myself too much with what we've talked about with the S. And as I've mentioned before, the GTS I would regard as not being the better option. You get a marginal performance benefit of 0.3 seconds and it costs a lot more. And in addition to this, when the next successor comes out, the GTS is going to get crunched because the GTS for the old line is inherently going to be a little bit less attractive than whatever the new model designation is. So I would regard this as not being the best option, to be honest, as compared to the S, which gets you almost all of the performance gain for not as much money, like $15,000 less, which is a big saving. So in terms of the options, I would again go with Papaya Metallic. Now, you do have another option, which is the Python Green. The Python Green I do quite like, but the problem with Python Green is you add it, and then you have to add on this GTS package. The GTS package is going to add on $14,900 in total. Now, the GTS package saves you some money if you really want these options, because it will cost you like $17,000 plus to get this done if you were to select each individual thing. The thing is, you'd have to want these options for that to be worthwhile. Otherwise, it's just Porsche upselling you on options you didn't really want. However, it comes with some deviated stitching, sport chrono package, slightly upgraded or changed wheels, upgraded seats, roof lining and race text, steel guards in carbon, and then in the rest of the GTS package, side blades in gloss black, torque vectoring, interior trim in carbon fiber, sport design skirts, rear fascia in satin black, exterior mirrors in high gloss black, which is a $0 option, front fascia in satin black. Again, I've mentioned the wheels, roof lining and race text I've mentioned, and sport chrono. So if you really want all of these things, then sure, you'll save some money. But a lot of these things you can definitely live without. So I'm going to cancel this, and then I'll keep going. Now, wheels, I'll keep the same as before. In terms of the interior, I'll do the exact same thing as before as well. You can go deviated stitching here, and it costs you less than it did with the S. Here, it's $18.40. And it's nice enough, but I suspect it won't actually gain you that much money in resale. Rather, people are going to care about what condition your car is in, whether you've kept the receipts, whether you've serviced it promptly. I'd say it's not the best use of money. I'd stick with the plain black. And plain black plus race text is fine. We again have this Bordeaux red option. Here in the GTS, it's showing up as putting all of the seats in all red, which is what it appears to show up as in other configurators for the S model as well. I think this is over the top, and in reality, it doesn't look that nice, and it's going to be super polarizing. So I would just stick with black with the race text here. So that's what we've got here, and we have all of these other options. Again, I'd set those aside. Now, for the most part, I'd set all of these options aside as I did with the S. The only real difference coming up here is in performance. With performance, PASM is now standard. I'd still select Sport Chrono. Torque vectoring might be more desirable here, in part because this is a performance car, so torque vectoring might be more attractive to some audience. But again, it's a tough sell. It doesn't add to the acceleration. It doesn't make the car go faster. It maybe makes some additional handling benefits, but this is not a sports car. So you don't really need to go over the top. It just needs to be good enough. Hence why I would not add it. In terms of comfort and assistance systems, I would again add surround view. I would again add park assist, but I would not add the other ones. The surround view I think is going to be useful and attractive to quite a number of buyers. You probably won't get $1,200 back from it, but it will help to get the sale across the line. Similarly with park assist, because some buyers are going to really appreciate that. Now, in terms of other interior options, the only one I'd go for again is heated seats. Otherwise, I just cut everything else out. Heated seats, some people are going to definitely want. Now, if we keep going down, there aren't many other options I'd end up adding here. In terms of interior carbon fiber, again, I'd consider this, $940, maybe more attractive in a car like this, where people might want more carbon fiber because of performance, or it looks performance-y. But that said, it's $940. I regard it as not really necessary. You can probably skip this. And then we can continue down in terms of audio communication. Bose, again, is an option here. Smartphone with wireless charging, all of these are options. I'd probably say they're not going to be that necessary. People aren't necessarily going to care about them in resale. I would regard them as not being needed to be added. Now, what you'll notice here is my spec here is 4,000 in options. That's a little bit less than for the S. The reason it's a little bit less than for the S is PASM comes standard with the GTS whereas it doesn't with the S. That said, this ends up being 85,000, which is still rather a lot more than what I'd gotten up to with the Macan S. So there's still quite a big price differential, and we're talking like almost $15,000 price differential, which is quite a bit. And I don't think you're getting $15,000 much of a better car from this. You might be better off keeping your $15,000 or investing it or doing whatever else that's going to be useful to you. So that's a bit of an overview about how I'd go about speccing a Macan S or a Macan GTS. Like I said, I would leave aside the base Macan. Now, to my mind, I'd probably lean toward going with the Macan S and then having some reasonable options on it, because once you start putting those same options onto a GTS, you end up with it being still quite expensive. And a number of those options are the types of things buyers might expect when going out and buying the car. So you kind of feel like you'd have to put them on there anyway. and then the Macan GTS ends up being a good $15,000, maybe $20,000 more than your base Macan, or your Macan S, sorry. And in which case, it becomes rather a lot more expensive for not that much more performance benefit. And let's face it, when the next model or the next generation comes out, the Macan GTS is going to be difficult to justify paying more for an old Macan GTS versus getting the new generation. And I can see the Macan GTS getting quite hurt in that respect, and it getting crunched down much closer toward the Macan S. And when the specs, the speed, the acceleration is very similar, it might be a little bit tricky to justify and to convince people to pay for that GTS over the S. However, reasonable minds can differ on this, and if you think I'm wrong, do let me know that in the comments below. So that's a bit of an overview about how I would go about speccing a Macan. If you have any thoughts about this, let me know that in the comments below. And otherwise, of course, it'd be great if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And thank you for surviving me droning on ad nauseum for the course of this video. And that notwithstanding, I hope to see you for future videos as well. Bye.